Tagovailoa, Jaylen, Waddle, and the Miami Dolphins sit at 1-5, and they face off with Myles, Garrett, Dillon, Gabriel, Quinshon Judkins, and the Cleveland Browns, who are also 1-5. What's great about this? One of these two teams will get their second win of the season. Now, their fans might be talking about tank mode. I fully believe it's too early for that already on the season. I get that narrative, but we got a football game, and it's still mid of October. Now, the Cleveland Browns come into this game feeling a little bit negative towards their run game. They had all of that energy with Quinshon Judkins running the football very well in that game against Minnesota. He had been very highly regarded, and then suddenly I'm looking on message boards and like, why are people coming after Quinshon? Look, 12 carries, 36 yards. It wasn't like he was horrible. The man just needs, I think, to get more opportunities. Not a lot was working for Cleveland in this game against Pittsburgh. Again, remember that is a dominant front seven going up against now Cleveland against Miami. Where I'm concerned for the Browns is Dillon Gabriel and his ability. It's funny, we get a left-handed quarterback playing against a left-handed quarterback. This is really rare at any level of the NFL, from Pee Wee to high school to college to the National Football League. I'm concerned about Dillon Gabriel because when you look at this Browns team play, there's just not a ton of separation. It's awesome, the kid out of Bowling Green, the rookie, Harold Fannin Jr., he has been phenomenal. I just thought that Jerry Jeudy, in the sense of my expectation, what Browns fans' expectation was going into 2025, that he would have a little bit of another breakout, that he would have a better season this year, but that has not materialized. And then David Njoku, he has a status that is uncertain for next Sunday, came out of the game against Pittsburgh. I'm curious whether or not he plays in this one. Where does Cleveland go on the offensive side of the ball? Now, the Miami Dolphins, Devon Achane has been incredible. If you're a Dolphins fan, you probably have him on your fantasy team. 16 carries, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was awesome against Los Angeles. Tua Tagovailoa, clutch when it mattered the most on what should have been the game-winning drive. Finds his man in the end zone. Darren Waller, you feel great for a guy like Darren Waller, who had the struggles throughout his career and dealing with the injuries. And this is a guy that comes out and has just played very well for Miami. He has been one of the lone bright spots in this team on the season. He has 4 touchdowns on the season. And look, this is a team that needs that tight end production. I'm looking forward to that matchup. Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker for Cleveland, their second-round pick, him covering Darren Waller. You know that Tua is starting to develop that chemistry between Darren Waller and Jaylen Waddle. This really looks to be the two main guys for this offense, or he'll go to in big spots. Waddle only had 2 catches on the day. It's not like he went for 7 catches for 80 yards the same way that Fannin did. But Miami, outside of Jaylen Waddle, again, you always talk about teams and why it's so huge to have that second great wide receiver target in Eagles with an A.J. Brown and Smith, the Lions and Williams, and having Amon-Ra. Neither of these teams have that elite great wide receiver. The Dolphins did have it. They know it very well when I'm talking about the duos in Hill and Waddle, but Hill goes down. Waddle looks like a wide receiver 1. He absolutely has played at that level. That's why he was a first-round pick out of Alabama. But by himself, it can't be all on him. Once you do see the double covers, it makes it a lot tougher. Now, he will have the responsibility of creating separation going up against the man, Denzel Ward. This is a fascinating Ohio State versus Alabama matchup. Everyone is looking towards that one. Their eyeballs will be solely focused on, is there separation from Jaylen Waddle? How does Denzel Ward hold up in coverage, which makes it important on a guy like Schlesinger, who for the most part of this day will be covering the middle of the field, and he is a good cover linebacker. He can tackle well. He can come down and get after the quarterback. Such a versatile guy, a part of why this Cleveland Browns defense has been one of the best in the NFL. 23 points is a decent amount. It's just that if they were able to establish a bit more offense, they really could have had a shot against Pittsburgh. They were in the entire game until it got away from them a little bit later there in the second half. Now, Cleveland, I'm trying to keep this thing on the ground and set a tone early that they want to be more physical. I love Quinshon Judkins' ability to immediately hit the hole, but also the contact balance that he seemingly always falls forward. He gets a little bit of a head of steam. Remember, he's 6 foot, 220 pounds. He's a little bit heavier than you would thought because he's so cut that you would imagine this guy only weighs like 206, but he's 220 pounds. Every ounce of that, getting him the football always seems to be a bright idea. It's just against Pittsburgh. There was just no path against them. I like the ability of Dillon Gabriel to spread the ball around. He did that at Oregon. He did that at Oklahoma. Not just being reliant on one guy. If you remember a season ago, it wasn't just Evan Stewart. It wasn't just throwing the ball to Tez Johnson. Shout out to him with a crazy catch this week for Tampa Bay against San Francisco. It was Terrence Ferguson. They had an ability to check it down to the running backs in Whittington. Like, this was a Dillon Gabriel that enjoyed being that traditional passer and having a chance to find all of his targets. And he was a great player when he was starting in college. He had the previous record for most starts. I believe he has the record, or he's tied for the most touchdowns in college history. Now, is there sort of a lean in this game against Miami? Two teams that have very much struggled in the earlier part of the season. I think the Cleveland Browns, just because of how much I think that Myles Garrett impacts this game off of the edge. That's an easy one to point out. Myles Garrett looks like the best defensive player in the NFL once again. But look, this guy coming off of the edge, is there anybody that can block him one-on-one? To go along with Myles Garrett's production, getting after the quarterback, they need somebody to come out like a Mason Graham in the middle of that defense as a defensive tackle. He has to start playing like that early first-round pick out of Cleveland. He's out of Michigan, excuse me. He's a guy that has to play really well in this one for Miami to stop De'Von Achane. Look, I talked a little bit about Miami and the production of how you want two wide receivers. This is another player in Achane, getting him the ball out of the backfield, passing it. He gets like 5 or 6 targets every single game. He's been one of their leading wide receivers on the year. I think that De'Von Achane out of the backfield, that's what even makes it a bit more fascinating. It's not just Darren Waller versus Schwarzenegger. It's also De'Von Achane versus Schwarzenegger. Saying that name like 8 times in this video, it starts to get a little bit tougher. But him out of the backfield, covering him man on man, one of the tougher guys to go speed for speed in this one. I've got the Cleveland Browns. Look, I like this one. The two lefty quarterbacks, two guys that had success in college. I think that Cleveland comes up with the win 20-17. Got a low scoring one in this game. Let me know down below whether you agree or disagree with 20-17. I make NFL and college videos of Blitz with Blender every day. I appreciate you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more content in the future, and I will see you next time.